flow of activity. Wagons arrive, unload, move on. People negotiate, argue, agree, disagree. It's a constant exchange of goods, information and energy. And beneath it all, there's that same quiet thread: gold. Everything here seems to orbit around it, even if it's not always visible. You notice how quickly the idea of wealth has reshaped daily life. Jobs that once seemed ordinary, selling food, repairing tools, providing lodging, are now central to the entire system. Not everyone is heading to the rivers. Some have realized that supporting the miners can be just as, if not more, profitable. A third light joke slips in as you watch someone enthusiastically advertise their services. Congratulations, you came for gold, and discovered a thriving career in selling shovels. It's oddly practical. As evening approaches, the city doesn't quiet down the way your trail camps did. Instead, it shifts into a different kind of energy. Fires and lanterns light up the area, casting a warm, flickering glow over the buildings and streets. Voices continue. Movement continues. It's less about rest and more about momentum. You find a small spot to settle for the night, surrounded by the distant hum of activity. It's not as peaceful as the open trail, but there's a different kind of comfort here, a sense that you've reached a significant point in the journey, not the end, but a turning point. You lie down, listening to the layered sounds of this rapidly growing place. Somewhere nearby, someone is still talking about a recent find. Elsewhere, a deal is being made. A plan is being formed. The city doesn't sleep easily, and as you close your eyes you realize that tomorrow you'll move again, not just through land, but into a new rhythm entirely. From the slow, steady journey to the fast, unpredictable pulse of a world built around the quiet promise of something hidden just beneath the surface. Morning in the goldfields doesn't arrive gently. It sort of nudges you awake with a mix of cold air, distant clanking, and the unmistakable sound of someone already working far harder than you'd like to admit is necessary this early. You open your eyes slowly, adjusting to the pale light stretching across the rough landscape beyond San Francisco, where the journey has now funneled you into its true purpose. This is it, the place where all those whispers led, and strangely, it looks quite ordinary. No glowing hills, no rivers overflowing with treasure, just uneven ground, scattered camps, and people, so many people, moving with quiet determination toward nearby streams and digging spots. A mainstream historical fact: most gold during the early phase of the California gold rush was found through placer mining, which involved panning river sediments to separate gold from sand and gravel. It required patience, repetition, and a surprising tolerance for cold water. You pick up your pan, turning it over in your hands again. It still feels slightly unfamiliar, like a tool you understand in theory but not yet in practice. Around you, others are already heading toward the water. You follow. The river, smaller than you imagined, calmer than expected, flows with quiet confidence, as if it knows something you don't. People line its edges, each one focused on their own small patch of possibility. You kneel down, dipping the pan into the water. The cold hits instantly, sharp but not unbearable. You scoop up a mix of sand, gravel, and hopeful ambition. Now comes the part that looks easy from a distance. You swirl the pan gently, letting the water carry away lighter material. At least that's the idea. In reality, it's more like a careful balancing act between patience and not accidentally throwing away the very thing you're trying to find. Swirl. Tilt. Pause. You lean closer, squinting at what remains. Tiny stones. Dark sand. No obvious gold. You try again, and again, and again. It becomes rhythmic. A second light joke drifts into your thoughts. Yes, you travelled thousands of miles to become very good at washing rocks, but there's something oddly calming about it. The repetition, the focus, the quiet concentration required to do it properly. You begin to understand why this didn't immediately turn into chaos back at the mill. Because the act of finding gold, is slow, methodical, almost meditative. Hours pass. The sun rises higher, warming the air, though the water remains stubbornly cold. Your hands adjust, gradually accepting the sensation. You develop a routine: scoop, swirl, check, repeat. Nearby, someone lets out a small, excited sound. You glance over. They've found something. Not a large nugget, not a dramatic discovery, but a few small flakes, catching the light just enough to confirm their effort wasn't entirely in vain. It's subtle, but it changes the atmosphere. You feel it immediately, a slight lift in energy, a quiet reminder that this process does, occasionally, work. Historians still argue whether the early goldfields were as productive as popular stories suggest. While some individuals did find significant amounts of gold, many spent long days with little to show for their efforts, relying on persistence rather than luck. You return your attention to your pan, now more determined than before. Swirl. Tilt. Pause. This time you notice something. At first you're not sure. It's small, almost too small to matter. But as you shift the pan slightly, it catches the light. A tiny golden flicker. You lean closer, holding your breath as if that might somehow preserve the moment. There it is. Not much, just a speck, but unmistakably gold. For a second, everything feels very still. Then a third light joke quietly forms. Congratulations, you are now extremely slightly richer. It's not a fortune, not even close, but it's something tangible, a confirmation that all those stories weren't entirely exaggerated. You carefully tap the pan, making sure the flake stays where it should. It feels oddly significant despite its size. Around you, the work continues. Some people find small amounts, others find nothing. A few appear to have better luck, their pans revealing more noticeable pieces. But for most, it's this slow, steady effort with occasional, modest rewards. You begin to see how this shapes daily life. Time is measured differently here, not in hours, but in attempts, in pans, in small successes and quiet disappointments. You take a break, sitting back on the bank, letting your hands rest. The sun reflects off the water, creating a soft, shimmering pattern that's almost hypnotic. You watch others continue their work, each person absorbed in their own process. It's not dramatic, it's not glamorous, it's consistent. A quirky tidbit: some miners develop superstitions about their techniques, believing certain spots, tools, or even times of day were more likely to yield gold. Whether these beliefs had any real effect is still debated, but they added a layer of personal ritual to an otherwise repetitive task. You glance at your own pan, wondering if you've already developed a preference for a particular spot. It's a strange thought, but not entirely unreasonable. As the day continues, you return to the water, repeating the process. The rhythm settles in again, familiar now, almost comforting. Swirl. Tilt. Pause. The world narrows to this simple sequence. The larger goal, the idea of striking it rich, fades into the background, replaced by the immediate experience of the work itself. And in that quiet, repetitive motion, you begin to understand something important. The gold rush isn't just about finding gold, it's about the daily act of searching for it. The patience, the persistence, the small, incremental progress that keeps people coming back to the river day after day. Even when the results are modest. Even when the dream feels distant. Because every pan carries the same quiet possibility. And sometimes, just sometimes, it glimmers back at you. By the time a few days pass in the goldfields, you start to notice something curious. It's not the gold that dominates conversations anymore. It's the price of eggs. You're sitting near a rough wooden table, holding a tin cup of something warm, possibly coffee, possibly an ambitious interpretation of coffee, and listening as two miners debate the cost of breakfast like it's a matter of national importance. $7, one says, shaking his head slowly. For eggs? The other replies, equally stunned. You look down at your own meal, simple, familiar, dependable beans, and suddenly feel a strange sense of financial wisdom. A mainstream historical fact, during the height of the California gold rush, prices for basic goods skyrocketed due to supply shortages and overwhelming demand. Items like eggs, flour, and tools often cost many times their usual price, turning everyday necessities into rare luxuries. And you can feel that shift everywhere. You walk through a loosely formed market area not far from the river, where tents and wooden stalls offer everything from boots to bread, each item carrying a price that makes you pause just a little longer than usual. A pair of sturdy boots? Expensive. A simple meal? Also expensive. A cup of coffee that tastes like it has seen difficult times? Surprisingly expensive. A light joke drifts in. At this rate, the real treasure might be a well-priced sandwich. But it's not entirely a joke. Because you begin to understand something important, gold may be the reason everyone is here. But survival depends on everything else. You stop at a small stall where a merchant carefully arranges goods with the precision of someone who knows exactly how valuable each item has become. He nods as you approach, offering a polite but measured greeting. You ask about a few supplies, nothing extravagant, just practical items you might need. The prices make you blink. Not dramatically, just enough to suggest that your expectations have not yet fully adjusted to this new reality. The merchant notices. Supply and demand, he says simply, with a slight shrug. It's hard to argue with that. Historians still argue whether these extreme price increases were purely driven by scarcity or if opportunistic pricing played a larger role. Some accounts suggest merchants were simply responding to limited supply lines. Others hint that a few individuals may have taken full advantage of the situation. Standing here, it feels like a mix of both. You decide to purchase only what you absolutely need, holding on to your remaining funds with a new level of caution. Gold might be out there, waiting, but until you find it, everything you spend matters. As you move on, you notice how this economic shift shapes daily behavior. People trade more carefully. Conversations often include discussions about cost, value, and whether something is worth it. Even small decisions carry a quiet weight. You pass by a group of miners pooling their resources, combining what they have to purchase supplies together. It's a practical solution, born from necessity. Nearby, someone is attempting to barter, offering a tool in exchange for food. The negotiation is calm but focused, both sides aware that every item has become more significant than it might have been elsewhere. A quirky tidbit. Some entrepreneurs during the gold rush made fortunes not by mining gold, but by selling goods and services to miners, everything from food and clothing to laundry and entertainment. You watch one such entrepreneur enthusiastically promoting his offerings, his confidence suggesting he may already be doing quite well